Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, wherever in the world you may be joining us from today. My name is Francesco Del Carpio, and I am the CFL York Operations Coordinator. I would like to officially open the 12th session of our VR/XR Training and Education, Knowledge and Experience Sharing Speaker Series, which is being presented in collaboration with the DexR Lab at York University. I will begin today's session with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge and recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territory upon which our campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. The area is known as Tkaronto and has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. As this is an online event and our participants may be joining from various locations, I strongly encourage you to learn about the traditional land upon which you are located. With this, I welcome our moderator, our speakers, and our participants from around the world. Welcome to our webinar. Without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our moderator, Dr. Ahmad Mohammadi. Dr. Ahmad Mohammadi is a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Civil Engineering at York University in Toronto, Ontario, where he received his PhD in transportation engineering. His research focuses on applications of virtual reality in transportation safety, traffic conflict analysis, and traffic micro-simulation modeling. His research contributes to improving transportation safety and efficiency. Ahmad is also the coordinator of Disasters and Emergency Extended and Virtual Reality, or DexR Laboratory at York University. Dr. Ahmad, thank you very much for moderating today's session. The floor is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to another session. So today we have another interesting session talking about how virtual reality is going on in Africa. So this is first time that we are taking a basically speaker session with the speakers from Africa. So then without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers. So we have three speakers today. First speaker is Paul Simon, who is the CEO of Africa Campus, Africa VR Campus and Center, and the first African in the metaverse. Paul is also a community elder and leader in his Kikuyu community of center in Kenya. He is also the host of the only African weekly metaverse show, Tales from Africa, on Engage XR, which is happening every Thursday at 7 p.m. I'm not sure this 7 p.m. is in which time zone. Maybe he can clarify later on.
London.
Yes, Paul, is it 7 p.m. in
London.
Okay, I see. So then the second speaker is Dr. Tom Nickel, who has started his media career in 1970 and was involved in the early years of independent video and online teaching and learning. He received a PhD in instructional technology and learning sciences from Utah State University in US in 2002. He served as a director of international programs there. Well, he continued to speak and offer events on street art, death, and love. And we have the third speaker, Diana, who is the associate director of Africa VR Campus and Center and the head of Young Women Metaverse programs, XR Girls Africa, and a program of Africa VR Campus and Center for Young Women in Metaverse Business and e-commerce. So I thought today we will have a lot of good informations coming from these wonderful three speakers. So without further ado, I pass it to, I guess, Paul. Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And well, I do like to go by the name Waiyaki, which is my indigenous name. And the moment I came here and you guys said indigenous, I was like, wow, these are the things that we like to connect with. indigenous in Africa, indigenous here in Kiambu from the Kikuyu community, the CEO of Africa VR Campus and Center, and the first African in the metaverse since 2016. We never even used to call it metaverse at that time. Just used to call it virtual reality. And I don't know whether you want me to just flow with the story of what got us here or what exactly we do in our programs. Ahmad, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hello, Paul. Yes.
Yes.
So I didn't get what your question is. Paul, can you repeat it again, please?
I asked whether you want me to go on or whether you will let the others introduce themselves first before we go on.
So then I didn't understand still. So do you want me to introduce the VR campus?
No, I wanted my board members to introduce themselves also.
Okay. So then maybe we can. So is the person inside the panels?
Yes, they are all in the panel. There's Tom and Diana.
Okay. So then, yes, go ahead and then introduce them, please.
All right, Diana, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Diana Njeria from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm the Associate Director of Africa VR Campus and Center, and the Director of XR Girls Africa. And we brought the first African girls to participate in a business competition in the metaverse. And that's where we gained the first girls of Africa in the metaverse. The title is pretty amazing. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess the way we'll proceed, so I'll briefly introduce myself the way Waiyaki and Diana did. And just to say that I have come to VR after a career in kind of independent media. And what the important part is that I met Paul and Diana back around the George Floyd killing. And it was a world coming together at that time in many places, and VR was one of them. I was hosting events. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those kinds of events. So people all around the world could hear what each other thought about the incident that had happened, what it meant for our policing. And Paul, with people all around the world there, came in his avatar form to an event and said, I want to be at this table. I want to be part of this discussion. And he joined it and informed us about issues with citizens and police in Kenya. That was the beginning of my relationship with Paul. It was pretty dramatic. It was a dramatic time. And he didn't, there are some things he didn't know at that time about creating an event. And we soon worked on that together. He had his Zoom going like we're on Zoom now and brought me into his home. So I met Diana very early on. And since then, we've cooperated on a number of things. I'm on the board of the organization called Africa VR Campus and Center that consists of a lot of things, from events in VR to working with young people there. And maybe the best way to present it, if we could share a screen, I'll give like a brief presentation that will both set the kind of VR that I think that we're doing, but then really go quickly to Africa and some pictures that both Paul and Diana can comment on. So can I share the screen now and do it that way? Is that okay?
Yes, please go ahead. Share.
Okay, here goes. We're just going to go right into it. Share. And let me go into the... we're not quite in the slideshow mode here, but I'll just stay right where we are. It's okay. So here we are talking about the Africa VR Campus and Center. And to me, just this picture is pretty dramatic. Just seeing young people in Africa wearing headsets. If people go away with no other idea other than the fact that there's really young people learning about the metaverse, learning how to present themselves and organize events and work in the metaverse, then we've accomplished what we wanted to do. I'll back up and say a little bit that for myself, my introduction to VR was meditation. And you wouldn't really think of meditation as a VR thing, but a lot of meditation has to do with dealing with distraction, like having a headset on. And there's also a social component to meditation. And during particularly the early years of the pandemic, lots of people, this is a picture from VR of groups of people gathering to calm down, to find a bit of peace, to check in with each other and see how they were doing. And it's worth bringing this up because this is the VR that Africa VR Campus and Center is all about, the kind of human side of VR. To continue for myself briefly is that particularly in those early years, death was a lot more high profile than usual. And I hosted events where people could just say what was on their mind about death. It was useful for a lot of people. I continue to do that. And I also lead an event where people come and say what they've lost, the layers of grief that happens normally and seems to be picking up now. It's worth sharing this, not just for my introduction, but to let people know that the metaverse is actually a place where people do share their vulnerabilities, talk about things not usually talked about. Sometimes it's very difficult with the people that we're all entangled with and living with and, doing the household chores with, to talk about some of these serious matters. And that's among other things. We also have fun that we do in the metaverse. I also want to make the point that storytelling is about people. Paul and Diana, you heard them and you're going to hear more of them. They bring just personality and humanity to their speaking and their storytelling and their talking. And just to remind you that the most popular entertainer in the United States back in the 1950s was a radio ventriloquist. Think about that for a minute, a radio ventriloquist. It's not in the technology, it's in the humanity that we bring to the stories that we tell that engages people. But by and large, the popular image put out of VR is that it's about games. It's about escaping and distracting ourselves individually. If you ask most people what they think about VR, they'd say, well, isn't it kind of like video games? And certainly there are great games. We have a lot of fun there, but it's quite a bit more serious. The first big idea that came out of VR was the idea of compassion. VR was kind of called the empathy machine because this guy, Chris Milk, went and made a documentary in a refugee camp showing life through the eyes of a young woman, Sidra. Sidra was the camp, a young woman, and it was just powerful. It was shown to fundraisers and to people in VR headsets, and they felt an empathy for the people in that situation that they might not have otherwise. And I feel that is a really true thing about VR, but it also kind of set the idea that VR storytelling is about funding and studios and expensive camera people and editing. Why can't we just get together in social VR platforms and tell great stories? That's what Paul and Diana do. Before I let them say more, I just want to also point out that even what VR is something to talk about. Some people assume it's a headset that you put on, and a lot of people use VR, access VR through a computer, tied maybe to a headset or maybe just on its own at a browser. Depending on how you define VR, many more people actually use spatial media in a tablet form, in a mobile form, which is very relevant for what we're talking about today, because many of the people that Paul and Diana have touched, what they have is a mobile device, and they have gone into the 3D spatial apps and had at least a 2D representation. And this kind of shows in a metaverse UN contest that Paul and Diana and a bunch of young people entered, creating an environment there to enter in a contest, a worldwide contest, was done by some people using mobile devices. That's what you got. So I'm just going to wrap up and make kind of a mega point that we often think of VR. In fact, this diagram here is from a deep thinker named Matthew Ball, probably one of the top thinkers in VR today, and he's got this idea that it's really a constellation of interdependent technologies that make this thing that we call the metaverse. That's one way of looking at it, but the question that we're asking is, he calls these everything from hardware and computers and payment services and networking as enablers of the metaverse. They allow the metaverse to happen and they work together. And this idea of a virtual platform, and I'm just showing illustrations of some of the well-known social VR platforms where people come together and have the kind of events that I'm talking about. They're just one of those little enablers in there along with everything else. And the way we like to think about it is, why not have people at the center of VR, people being the driving force behind what happens? And we're in good company when we say that, because, New York Times called Jaron Lanier one of the top 50 public intellectuals, and he says what we need to do in his book about VR and in his recent interview about VR, we need to double down on being human. It's not about the technology part. This is where I turn it over to, I'll say, Paul, and just say, yeah, technology is certainly part of it. Bringing headsets to young people in remote locations in Kenya is amazing. What do you see here, Paul, when you look at this picture? This is really early in the VR campus. What does it remind you of?
And just to take it up is the reason why after 2016, when I wore VR for the first time, I was actually, trying to recover a lost boyhood dream of becoming an astronaut. And when I saw the VR device being talked about on a program called BBC, called Click, used to come on Saturdays, I thought, what a nice device to have. And when I experienced VR, I realized that there is so much media, educationally wise, that our young ones here in Africa don't have a clue. And Ahmad, I want you to imagine you are in a remote school in Africa. Now look at the picture shown on the screen. The children says they are in school, but you see no walls, you see no roof. We are outside, outdoors. Now, if a teacher wants to teach about a biological plant or animal cell, what does he do? He makes an intricate diagram on the blackboard, and the student copies the same diagram onto their books. And they have to draw it correctly. But how do you draw something that is microscopic in a book and you relate to it scientifically? You cannot. And that is why when I experienced VR, I thought, what a nice device to interact academically wise, educationally wise, with the students and young people of Africa. In the bottom right picture, those are high school students who are observing VR for the first time and looking at plant and animal cells. They have never seen them. The school doesn't have a microscope. And you can see the blackboard behind them, the one that the teacher draws diagram of plant and animal cells. We are talking about, when you go higher up in education, you're talking about engineers who are learning, civil and architectural engineering, plumbing, masonry. They have no idea how a diagram of a building ought to be, on an engineering scale. So what do? You bring them in VR, you show them the Burj Khalifa from the bottom up being built, you bring them into these simulations and they understand the concepts. And once they understand these concepts, they take that education and they run away with it. They go away with it. They are inspired to become that which the world out there is ahead of them and has denied them. And it's not about that. When Tom talks about storytelling, Ahmad, how do Canadians, for example, or Americans, who brings them of what and who Africa is? Where do they view it? I think, and I speak without fear of contradiction, the Canadians and the Americans view Africa from what CNN and Fox News shows. And I'm wondering, where Ahmad, I'm here, I'm on Zoom with you, and I do go to the metaverse, like you said, every Thursday. Why can't I tell the Canadians and the Americans about who and what African is? And not just me. I will bring these children in the metaverse, and they can also tell you what their Africa means to them, what Africa is to them, who they are as young Africans, as young upcoming Africans. So when I realized that nobody is coming here, long before Meta and Google established their headquarters in Nairobi, who did it? When I wore VR for the first time, I asked myself, why not me? And I want to acknowledge the love of people like Tom Nichol, who saw that passion and they said, I am going to add a little bit of firewood to your fire so that when it starts burning, it will never stop. And it's not just Tom Nichol. He has come along and also brought others with him. Others have learned about us in the metaverse, and they have joined us in the mission to bring Africa into the metaverse and the metaverse to Africa.
So, Paul, I got a picture that I'm going to ask you to comment, Diana, on just a minute. But also, Paul, isn't this a story of you going into town and doing kind of open public workshops? Could you say something about this picture?
Oh, yeah. And this is a contrast now between the picture you had shown earlier and this picture that is right here. So the picture you showed earlier was deep in the village.
Yeah.
No buildings. There was dust behind the children. But then I realized, well, I also need to go to the city and show the youth there about the metaverse. And not just that, we actually, now when you come to the XR Girls Africa, that is a team that we filtered out from the Metaverse for SDGs competition. And we realized there is, okay, the competition is over, Ahmad, what do? Do we tell people, wrap up, goodbye, we'll see you next time? No. We realized the young ones who had the passion for VR, it would be wrong for us to tell them to pack up and go home. So we took them on permanently, and without a place to bring them, we bring them to a little hut outside Nairobi every week on Wednesdays. And we said we're going to continue teaching them VR. And in the quest of continuing to teach them VR, don't forget, the world is watching. They were invited to a business competition hosted in Oregon, USA, against girls from across the world. And some of these girls you see here, they are very young, because the girls we have are as from young as 12 years old. But one category, which was actually looking at girls between 14 to 16 years old, they won the Best Social Impact Award against girls from across the world. And you see them there. Now, most people have come there and asked me, is that an AI-generated picture? That you have got 7 girls wearing virtual reality headsets. I say, that is not an AI-generated picture. Come on. That is my house. They're outside my house. And this is the morning which they won that Best Social Impact Award. They all have VR headsets on, Ahmad. They can schedule a metaverse event in under 12 minutes. Now they have learned metaverse in just over a year now. So they are somehow experts in the metaverse, and they will give you a run for your money if you are to challenge them now in the metaverse.
Let's, Diana, why don't you, we're getting pretty recent here now. Why don't you tell me what's going on in these pictures?
Now I see Diana has, like I said, this is Africa, and I see that she was thrown out. I'm sure she's gonna be coming in momentarily.
Oh, okay.
But I can go ahead and tell you that at this instance that you see here, and let me talk about even the girl on the right there. We call her the first metaverse Mokorino, because her religion, you see the way she's dressed, that's not her Sunday best, that's her religion best. She is supposed to wear a keremba, which is permanently worn on the head, and very long dresses. Now, these girls at this very moment that this picture was taken are hosting their metaverse event. Now, if you want to meet them, it happens usually or bi-weekly on Engage XR at 5 p.m. Nairobi. And they talk about the issues that are around them. And these are the same girls who last year beat girls from UK, girls from Canada, girls from USA, and they scored the best social impact award. So the girls on the right, the girl on the right, the first metaverse Mokorino, has gone well and beyond what her religion's dictates her to be. And she said, I want to learn technology. Now, the religion does not allow the interaction between the girl and non-Akorino. So I'm not an Akorino myself. But you see now, this is now the social change that is happening. You know, when you ask me what topic I wanted to talk about, I ask myself, do I talk about introduction of VR in Africa, or do I talk about VR for social good in Africa? Why? Because these girls, by wearing that PR, Ahmad, they are running away from early pregnancies. They are running away from early marriages. They are running away from poverty. They are running away from so many issues around them. They come host a metaverse event. They do their little fundraising, and each of them goes away with $20. Diana, you are here. Check it out.
Yeah. In fact, just to let Diana catch her breath and whatnot, we've referred a few times to an international competition that these girls were in, and they won. That laptop that you see in the picture is one of the things that they won. Maybe Diana could join us by telling us what was the competition about? What did they do?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul and Tom. Sorry about that. I think I had a little of a network issue.
Yeah.
So the girls came together and thought about a business idea, which they would pitch in a panel of judges. It was back in 2021, where as I was going in the corridors of VR, I stumbled in an event of women in tech. And I met a woman named Diana McLennan, who is the president of Girls STEAM Institute. And she reached out to me since I was an African then. She was like, oh, I've never seen an African in this space. So she asked me, you know, would you be willing to bring girls to compete with other girls across the globe in a business competition? Well, I thought about that for a few days because remember, these girls, we met them in outreaches and other things that we do here in the communities. And I thought about what will the parents think that, you know, I'm bringing girls from different background and different religious beliefs to work together. But I said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bring all these girls together and I will tell them about this business competition. I really wanted to know what they thought about it. So we gathered together in a room and I told them about, you know, this competition and how they would be welcomed by other girls across the world to compete with them in a friendly manner. And they said, well, yeah, let's try it. And they said, you know, we have an issue in our community. Girls of our age are suffering from period poverty. And if we are going to come up with a business idea, then we should come up with a business idea that will help the community and that will impact the social lives of other girls out here. And so they gathered together, brainstormed all the knowledge they had and research. And on August, on 2023, they stood up in the metaverse for that business competition. And they split it in group. As you can see, there are around 7 girls. 3 of them did the period poverty business competition, and the other 4 did the reusable diaper business competition. The other 4 girls did the reusable diaper for young teenage mothers, because here in Africa there is that rise of number of teenage mothers. Girls are getting pregnant at a very young age, and with that, the cycle of poverty continue to grow, because these girls cannot afford diapers for their babies. So they said, hey, as you do the reusable sanitary pads, we are going to do the reusable diapers for our teenage mothers. And they did a very good job, that they actually got an award of, a Best Social Impact Award in the Girls Team Institute Business Competition.
Yeah, well told. And to add to what she's saying, it's interesting that disposable or reusable diapers and sanitary napkins are important, but equally important in keeping these young women out of early pregnancy and being in that life with no other choices is this VR itself. It's having something to look forward to, something meaningful. Being part of the Africa VR Center in campus is what is keeping these young women on a track, perhaps not being trapped in poverty too. So their business idea really deeply affects their life. And speaking of life, people talk all the time about, VR is like the Matrix, we'll never see the real world again. And I think it's important for people to understand what Paul and Diane are doing with the VR campus and center, is that they're really considering the whole person. And just recently, these pictures are from an outing that if you only live your life in one small village, International Airport is kind of like a virtual reality world too. Why don't you tell them, Paul or Diane, either one of you, what your recent outing was like and how that fits into your idea of working with people at the campus?
Thank you, Tom. Actually, I didn't know this picture was here. This is actually this past Tuesday, and on Tuesdays we get discount on pizzas. But the reason why we are going actually in the first place is we have got 2. I have 2 of them here. These are 2 right near me, 2 unopened Quest 2 meta devices. Maybe you cannot see it because of the setup, but the reason why they went to town is to receive the additional headsets that we received. Like I said, everyone donates in a different way to the girls. There are people who come and speak to the girl. There are people who donate headsets. Tom here has actually donated Wi-Fi installation for the whole village, so that we not only use virtual reality headset, but we have no issue about connectivity. But I wanted them to go get the headsets themselves. I've been going for these headsets for so long. I wanted them to go for this particular set of headsets. And so we curated a whole life around the collection of the headset. First of all, it was in Nairobi. Most of them have never even been to Nairobi. Then we went to an extra mile and they said, oh, we have never even taken a pizza. And we went to the Pizza Inn, and there we are dining and on pizzas there. And we took it further, and on our journey to the international airport, we also passed by the new Nairobi Expressway, because that's a road that they hear about in the news, that it was constructed and it has no traffic. So we passed there. You can see the top right picture there. The girls are in the car. They were really having the moment of their lives, racing on the Nairobi New Expressway. So that life, we are showing them that other than running away from poverty, running away from anything that is happening around their lives, we are also projecting them to be women, to be a modern woman who have experienced the modern world, who can, book a ticket to New York, who can, go about town and talk about life in general when they come to the metaverse. They don't now need only talk about the poverty around them, Ahmad. They can tell you about what projects is happening at a national level, at a continental level around us. How is urbanization affecting life as we know it?
Yeah. So, Diana, I just wonder if you got any particular stories about maybe one of the girls and how the experiences that she's getting with you have changed things for her. You're muted now too, Diana.
That's a very good question. I would love to talk about all the girls because to me, they amaze me by the quick understanding and the way nowadays they are grasping things and learning very quickly. I would start by saying when first I met them, I remember they were very shy. They were very shy girls, and I totally understand them because I myself was brought up in a village, and I went on to a local primary school where education was just wake up, go to school, back home, do some chores, and kind of a boring life. Or no, I don't want to say boring. It's like it has that monotonous. There's nothing exciting about going to school or about meeting your teachers or about wanting to know more. Life was just stagnant. And when I met them, the first thing I remembered was myself at their age. I didn't know about technology. I didn't know about computers and other things that I know today. And they were quite shy to admit that they don't know anything about technology or they don't like how they live their lives. But, I embraced them and I told them, you know what? I see myself in you. I was at your age and I see myself in you. Just to go back, when I was in primary school, I remember teachers sometimes also go through their personal life issues. And when they come to school, sometimes they forget, what you're going through at home should not interfere with what you're doing in school. And one time, one teacher saw that I'm really dropping in my subjects. And she told me, you are very defeated. You are defeated. And, I carried that statement with me for quite a while, for quite a long time. And so when I met these girls, I saw something like that in them. There are people around them who tell them really bad things. You cannot make it. You won't go anywhere. Your life will always revolve here in the village. And so to change their mindset was quite a goal for us. And so I remember I met them and I started now telling them about the metaverse. And they really didn't get what I was telling them. And they kind of didn't want to get it because, hey, what is this? And I understood that. But I knew I have to go back again and again. We were saying with Paul that we need to make sure that they be coming here every Wednesday. And, by the love that we showed them and the words of encouragement that we gave them, they continued showing up. They continued coming. They never missed a lesson. And from today, when I look back to the girls that I met, the shy girls, the girls who don't want to say anything, they just want to be quiet. When you tell them something, they are like, yes, yes, yes. There is no that discussion. It's always yes. Nowadays, they are able to raise an argument with me or with Paul, and it's such an amazing thing. They're able to talk loud. They're able to now create events in the metaverse where people from different parts of the world can come, listen to what they're talking about, the issues in their villages or in their communities, and without shying away, they talk about it all. And that's the biggest, achievement I think that we've made, Paul, changing somebody's mindset and what, they thought was or should be or they deserved in life. Trying to change that has been really a goal for us.
Maybe to add a little bit on that is that the girls, when they came here, some of them could not even operate a smartphone, leave alone a laptop, leave alone a VR headset. And now we don't only, by the way, teach them virtual reality. By the way, we follow our own curated syllabus to teach them about technology. So they do artificial intelligence, they do Midjourney, they generate photos on Midjourney, they use Copilot, they use all these tools because we don't want to stick with one side of the tech knowledge. We want to, like I said, they also need to learn how to make beautiful calendars, beautiful CVs, beautiful this and that. They need to learn how to utilize all these tools and take them in their own way. And beyond that, the VR is not just a device that they use. It's a device also, it's a platform for them to showcase the programs that are in their grasp.
May I jump? So I'm quite impressed about what Diana told the story. I have not thought in this way that the VR can also improve some skill sets, right? I have not thought about this, and this is the new lesson that I learned. So I have some questions, but before that, I wish I can ask some questions that basically participants are asking these questions. So someone is asking how we can access this tool in, I think that's access. So you mentioned, Paul, about you have on Thursday, I think, some metaverse meeting. I think the question is regarding how our audiences can participate in that meeting.
Oh yeah, and by the way, that metaverse meetup, it's not just a meeting, it's a meetup where even you, Ahmad, in fact, the first time I did this, the first time I emailed with you, I was shocked because the same week we had over 5 Canadians coming, and I thought they were part of your university, but then they told me, no, we are actually here from another institutions in Canada, and we wanted to see, what Africa VR Campus is all about. So it's a public event, and the reason why we do it on Engage XR, I do not work for Engage XR. I wish I did. I wish they gave me a little bit of commission, Ahmad, because I have always hosted my events in Engage XR. But there's one reason why I do it, so that you have no excuse not to come to the metaverse. You see, Engage XR is compatible with PC, it's compatible with mobile, both Android and iOS. Maybe the high-end mobiles, not the old Androids, of course. But the reason why we do it is because at the end of the day, I am in Africa. We cannot give all Africans headsets. So we know that there are Africans with PCs and they're able to come in the metaverse as well. So it's a public meetup. You come to us every Thursday at 7 p.m. London. It is usually 10 p.m. in Nairobi, Kenya. And by the way, when I say 10 p.m. in Nairobi, Kenya, we don't have a daylight saving. So it is always 10 p.m. Nairobi, Kenya. Since 2019, we started hosting that event in Auspice VR. But when Auspice VR closed down, we went to Engage XR. And that is the same place where the girls also have their events. So some of the Wednesdays, not all Wednesdays, you can also check up on the events list whether you will see XR Girls Africa. And on that day, you'll see an event by Africa VR Campus and Center. So you come there, it's a public event, we have no password. And I would like to tell you a little story about that event. And it actually touches on Canada. Our very first person who came in that event was a Canadian. I'm not kidding. You cannot make these things up. I wish I invited him today to this, but I did tell him I'm going to be talking to the Canadian University. The first guy who came in there, his name is Edward. He comes from Montreal, Canada. And Edward never misses one event. If you want to see Edward, you come on Thursday, you'll see him. And ask him one question. What is it that you love about coming to this event? And Edward had been coming for so long. I asked Edward, well, Edward, you have been coming here for so long. Why don't you today, because sometimes we play African music, why don't you today play for us a Canadian song? You know, teach us a little bit of Canadian culture. And Edward said, unfortunately, I don't have a favorite song. And I thought, well, why don't I dedicate for you an African song? And I sang for him a song called Malaika by Miriam Makeba. And now, as soon as I was done, Edward was saying, wow, what a beautiful song. Can you sing it again for me? And I've sung it for him so many times that when Edward is now, relaxing somewhere in Montreal, Canada, you'll hear Edward, a 70-something-year-old guy, singing Malaika nakupenda malaika. He is singing a Swahili song, which is a favorite song of him now. So beyond what we do, Ahmad, is that we have created a session where people absorb our culture, our knowledge, our music, our arts, our culture, our histories, our love for the world, and the love, that space right there, when they come in there, no one knows where it's going to go. I'm going to sing a different song and somebody else will love it. So it's so good that way that we have been able to access us at such a digital megaphone to be heard across the world. So if you want to join us every Thursday, 10 p.m. Nairobi, which is 7 p.m. London, you'll find us there.
Maybe you can also copy and paste the website, Paul, in the chat so that our audiences can also use that.
Yes, I think I can do
that. Yes. So another question is a follow-up question is, would you explain the steps to succeed in this field?
Would I do what?
How to basically succeed or move if some
succeed
part, how he or she should start. I believe,
yes,
for example, from the African perspective, if you want to say.
I see you. Thank you. That's a very wonderful question. I love that question. And because most of the people have not believed our story because it is too much gain. And by the way, Ahmad, we do not charge for VR training. We do it for free because we have a passion for Africans to be in that space. And we have got people who support us to enable us to do what we do. And so if you want to be successful in whatever that you do, be it in whatever aspect of industry that you are in, start. That will be my motto. Start it. And those who will love what you are doing will be aligned with what we are doing, and they will walk the rest of the journey together. When I wore the VR for the first time, I didn't know I'd be talking with York University. I didn't know I'd ever talk with Harvard University. I never knew I'd talk with Mercer University or the local universities that we have talked about, talked with. But I started. And along the journey, I met Tom Nichol. Along the journey, I met Edward from Montreal. In 2024, February 23rd, I met Ahmad at York University community. Who knows? There's someone listening out there who will walk the rest of the journey with us. And it's not all about giving us funding. Listen, come, sit, share also what happens in your side of the world. And listen also to what happens to this side of the world. There is so much angles in life that we can share about as humans. As Tom called it, it's human VR. And from there, we can actually walk together, regardless of let's pull down the geographical, geopolitical fences. And let's talk to each other. Omondo homondo, man to man, human to human. And let's work together.
Yes, so that's exactly, yeah. It's when we think at the first, we think about the challenges of the path, but not the opportunities, right? So one question is, Paul, uh, how many people are involved right now in the community? And in the first, if you wanna say, for example, in the first year, and then now, how many peoples are in this loop of the activity?
I don't think I can be able to count them all in this city because there are people who are in the community. There are people in Seattle. There are people in France. There are people in Germany. In fact, there is an event, South by Southwest, that is happening in March, somewhere in Austin, Texas. And an email came through from Germany. Hey, Waiyaki, will you be part of us as we go to Austin, Texas? I mean, come on, Ahmad. There are so many people who are involved with us, and all of them are passionate for one thing. They have heard the cry that this continent, the children of this continent are having. They have removed the screen and they have perused from themselves what is needed to be done. And they are saying, I want to be part of this. There was a guy called Travis who used to send me $20 every Wednesday, and he would tell me that's for the lunch in case the girls get hungry. You can buy some snack for them. That is somebody who is telling me lunch is on me. The girls, whatever they are going to eat, give them a little bit of something so that they don't have to get hungry. So everyone has his own share. And even if you are to come and tell our students or our youth, I want to talk to you about what it is to be a woman, about what it is to be a man, about what it is to be successful, about what it is to be a student. Come and talk to them. And that helps them in one way or another. These girls, by the way, they have talked with people from SpaceX, right? I mean, some woman somewhere will see it and say, I want to talk to those girls because I went through the challenge. The other day, we talked with Dot Cannon, the president of Two Mavericks. He's a very famous podcaster. And she said, I want to talk to the girls about the challenges that I face as a woman in America as one of the first broadcasters. How do you think those girls went home feeling? They went home feeling we are only girls in Africa, but we are not the only women in the world. There are other women outside there whose story started far worse than we did. Are you a cancer survivor? Come talk to these girls. Some of their parents have died of cancer. Are you a survivor of rape and molestation? Come talk with these girls. Some of them have been raped, some of them by our own fathers. You know, whatever you are struggling with out there, there is a sparkle you can write in the lives of our youth here in Africa.
Yeah. Let me add to that answer this way and combine a couple of the questions is that, it's a spreading network, where Paul and Diana started was going out to schools. And so, every single one of the people in those schools were touched by them, and who knows, how that's going to come out. And when he went into the Nairobi and just, booked an office and people were just coming. So, it's hard to count how many, the number of the young women that are coming every single week, like Diana said now, is growing. It's up to 10 or 12 now, and we'd like it to be more. And that the part about succeeding that Paul said is really right. People need to understand that this is really an opportunity time. If you wanted to start a podcast, boy, you'd be competing with a million other podcasters. But to start something in the metaverse and in VR right now, it's a great opportunity. There's a lot more people talking about it than doing it. And that's what Paul does it, and Diana. They don't just talk about it, And so to add to what Paul is saying about how anyone can get involved is that we now have maybe just a fingernail and stability. And I think we are at the point where people who want to be part of our events, to make presentations, to be mentors or coaches to the people that we're gathering together, we're just hitting that point now. So we're kind of spreading our wings, and we'd like to get more people involved. But the way to start is by coming to the metaverse, by coming to Tales of Africa, and by coming to the campus, by putting some skin in the game and being part of this way of being together. You do it and you come to some events, you get to know people, you'll find things that will really engage you, and then you'll be part of those numbers too.
Yeah, and maybe I should add to that. I remember the first time I got to, engage in the metaverse. I didn't go in and I was hosting an event. We can't all say that we have that ability of talking to people. You can just start by, as Tom said, going in the metaverse, visiting and engaging in events. Even if you cannot talk, just sit back and listen and get inspired by people who are giving stories of their real life, what is happening in their real life, and you never know what will grow from that. I mean, that's how the girls started. They didn't come to the campus and said, "Hey, we are XR Girls Africa, and today we are starting an event." No, they came to the metaverse and sat down and listened to events from other women, XR women, Tom's event, saying goodbye, and other events that are hosted by women. And they get to see what other women are doing in the metaverse, building, designing, doing great things. And they're like, hey, we also want to do something here. And now they're here, they host their own events.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for sharing your time. Time is up for this speaker session. So anything that you wanna add to just wrapping up this speaker session, then please.
I would like to add that, and I've put the link to on the chat line. Our website is www.africavr.org, or the full name of our NGO is Africa VR Campus and Center. And if your university is looking forward to be onboarded onto VR, we also help in that. And we also, we are constantly looking out for gigs that we can do also to, instead of, saying, help us, it is good to give us those gigs, those, contracts that we can, interact with the students and help onboard them onto VR. We've done quite a few onboarding projects and programs that we have been given from organizations across the world and institutions across the world. But above and beyond that, anyone wants to meet us, they're always there on Thursday on Engage XR until we maybe change to another app. But for the moment, we are still there every Thursday at 10 p.m. Nairobi.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone.
Okay,
Especially
thanks for
our
this opportunity.
speakers. Thank you, Dr. Tom, Nikhil, Diana, and Paul. I hope that we can hear more about you in future. And as a first African metaverse, right?
Yes.
So yes. So okay, so it's time, I think, for Francesco to wrap the meeting up. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ahmad. And I would just like to echo my thanks as well to all of you for presenting today. That was great and very informative. And it's amazing to see all of the work that you've been doing in Africa in regards to VR and learning. So thank you very much for sharing, and thank you as well to all of our participants for being here today, for watching, for joining us live to watch it live, and for supporting this series. And of course, thank you to everyone who will be watching this recording online as well later on. So just one last thing I would like to share is I would like to quickly share my screen to remind everybody that this is a monthly speaker series. So the next session will be it's on the fourth Friday of every month. So the next session will be on Friday, March 22nd, at the same time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The speaker for this session will be Rob Thoreau from Georgian College, who will be speaking on XR and AI-enabled experiential learning. So please continue to share this in your networks. Please continue to save the dates on your calendar, and we will see you all next time. So thank you very much.
Bye.
Right, thank you so much.